Something is happening while you breathe, something you can't see. The air seems the same, the body seems the same, but there's a slight, invisible twist, as if the space around you is responding subtly, almost imperceptibly. It's in that instant that the field changes. A gesture, a thought, an emotion, and the gears of the invisible begin to move. You think it's coincidence. But the field doesn't work by chance. It translates frequencies. And yours changes more often than you imagine. Sometimes, everything seems still, stagnant, as if life has gone into standby mode. You do what you've always done, but nothing moves. Opportunities pass you by, conversations sound empty, and time seems not to hear you. It's like talking to a room full of echoes. But, on the other side of that silence, something is watching you. Something is responding, even when you don't realize it. And that response depends on the rhythm you emit, the vibration you unconsciously sustain. There are times when the field closes. Not because it rejects you, but because your own state creates a kind of fog, an interference between what you ask for and what the universe understands. And it is in this fog that repetitions are born. The same patterns, the same pains, the same people in different bodies. It is an energetic cycle that is not broken by force, but by attunement. Imagine yourself as a frequency traveling through the air. When you change a tone, everything around you tries to readjust. Relationships, opportunities, even chance reorganizes itself. But this change comes at a price. It exposes what was previously hidden. The shadows of the unconscious come to the surface. The field amplifies what still vibrates within you. And that's where the real work begins. Not outside, but inside. Because the field doesn't lie. It only reflects. If your reflection seems blurry, it's because something within you is asking to be seen. But what exactly happens in that invisible space when its frequency changes? What does the field do with this new information you provide? And why is it that sometimes, the more you try to change, the more reality seems to resist? Perhaps the answer isn't in doing more. Perhaps it lies in understanding what truly moves when you change. When your frequency changes, the field reacts, but not always in the way you expect. Sometimes, the universe's first response isn't harmony, but chaos. Things start to fall apart, people drift away, opportunities evaporate, and you wonder if you're really on the right path. What you don't realize is that this disorder is the field reorganizing itself to mirror the new vibration you emit. The old structure needs to dismantle before the new can exist. It's as if the universe were a liquid mirror. Every time you change state, it takes an instant to reflect the new form. In that interval, everything seems uncertain, unstable, strange. And that's where most people give up, right at the point where the new reality is about to solidify. You feel the discomfort, but that discomfort is just the surface vibrating, adjusting to the new frequency. Think about how sound changes water. A different note creates different patterns. Similarly, each emotion creates a pattern in the field. When you vibrate with fear or doubt, the pattern is distorted, fragmented. When you vibrate with calm, everything aligns. It's simple, but not easy. Because maintaining calm amidst the noise requires presence. And presence is the language the field understands. Perhaps you've noticed this in small coincidences. People appearing at the right time, messages arriving when you're thinking about something, opportunities arising out of nowhere. These signs aren't chance. They're echoes of coherence. They're responses from an intelligent field that aligns with your vibrational signature. And the more you learn to sustain this state, the more the universe seems to recognize your tone. There is a difference between wanting to change and actually changing. The desire comes from the mind. The change comes from the body, from the space, from the silence between one thought and another. It is in this space that the real happens, the space that cannot be measured but can be felt. It is there that the invisible begins to take shape. Perhaps that's why so many people choose to stay here, following each revelation, because they feel there's something real happening, something that can't be explained, but can be recognized. The field doesn't speak in words. It speaks in frequency. And when you finally learn to listen to it, everything changes, including what you believe to be impossible. But there's a detail that almost no one notices. The field doesn't just respond to what you feel. It responds to what you sustain. And that's exactly where the secret begins to reveal itself. When you shift your frequency, the field begins to test how real that change is. It doesn't do this to punish you, but to check if the new state is solid enough to sustain a new reality. That's why, right after an awakening, so many feel a kind of fall, as if life were pulling the rug out from under them, exposing old wounds, forgotten patterns, fears that seemed overcome. It's not regression. It's purification. The field needs to clear the echoes of the old vibration so that the new one can remain. It's like an ocean in tidal transition. The waters recede first, revealing what was hidden at the bottom. Fragments, wreckage, silent currents that still influence the surface. You look at it and feel discomfort. You want to flee, you want to return to the illusion of stability. But it is in this discomfort that the transformation truly begins. Because the field does not respond to the desire to escape. It responds to the courage to remain present in the midst of the tide. There's a point where everything seems to get lost. Synchronicities vanish, clarity evaporates, and the silence of the field becomes deafening. It's the void between frequencies. A territory that few dare to cross, because there the mind has no control. But it is precisely there that the new signature begins to be imprinted. The field hears what you do when no one is watching, what you vibrate when no one applauds you. It reads your silence, not your words. And it is in this silence that true power begins to emerge. Not the power to control, but the power to align. Because when fear comes, the old pattern tries to rise again. It whispers that nothing has changed, that you are alone, that the field has forgotten you. But the field does not forget. It only observes, waiting for you to maintain the frequency, even when everything seems to crumble. The mind calls loss what the field calls adjustment. The soul calls emptiness what the field calls space. And the body feels it before the heart understands. Something is realigning itself, even in the midst of chaos. When the old vibration begins to die, the entire field silently reorganizes itself. It's like the instant before dawn, everything seems still, but the sun is already on its way. What you feel now may not be the end. Perhaps it's just the field preparing to show you what has always been there, waiting for you to be ready to see. Sometimes, what the field does is remove excess noise so that you can finally hear what was there all along. It doesn't destroy, it refines. Situations that previously seemed like punishment are, in fact, a silent cleansing. As if the universe were wiping the surface of your life with a damp cloth, removing what no longer resonates with who you are becoming. It's subtle, but profound. You feel something shifting in the air, even if nothing visible has happened. The field is delicate. It doesn't shout, it only whispers, and to hear it, you need to slow down. It's at this point that many feel the urge to support this journey, leaving a silent sign that the message touched them, as if saying to the universe, I understand. Because when understanding happens, there are no fireworks. There is a kind of peace that doesn't need to be explained. It's curious how the more you try to chase harmony, the further it eludes you. But when you simply stop, breathe, and allow the field to reorganize itself, everything seems to fall back into place on its own. It's like watching specks of dust floating in a beam of light. Nothing needs to be pushed. The right movement already exists, it just needs space. Imagine yourself in a dark room with a lit candle. If you rush to illuminate everything, the wind blows out the flame. But if you remain still, allowing the light to spread slowly, the shadows begin to recede on their own. The countryside is like that. It doesn't respond to haste, it responds to the coherence between what you feel and what you emit. There is a hidden tenderness in this invisible intelligence. It doesn't judge you, it only reflects. When you fall into doubt, the field falls silent so that you can hear your own echo. When you return to the present moment, it responds again, like a friend who patiently awaited your return. And perhaps, at that point, you realize that the field was never against you. It only teaches you to uphold what you say you want. There's a beauty in realizing this. A feeling of relief, almost a reminder of home. Because, deep down, the countryside isn't outside. It's the breath between your thoughts, the interval between one heartbeat and the next. And the more you recognize it, the more it shows you what it always wanted to reveal, that the invisible isn't distant. It's intimate. It's you, answering yourself, in a language that only silence understands. There comes a moment when the field seems to test how much you truly trust. Nothing moves, the silence weighs heavily, and even the air seems to hold its breath. It's a liminal point, an in-between space where the old no longer vibrates, but the new has not yet arrived. In this void, everything you've learned about control dissolves. You realize there's nothing to do but sustain the state, remain whole, even without guarantees. It's the moment when the universe observes, attentively, whether your faith is an idea or a frequency. The field doesn't rush. It doesn't bend to human anxiety. It responds to alignment. And alignment isn't proven in the light, it's proven in the shadow. It's easy to be coherent when everything flows. It's difficult to maintain center when the tides pull in opposite directions, when fear whispers again that perhaps none of this will work. But it is in this friction that the frequency crystallizes. It is in contrast that the field recognizes authenticity. Imagine a musician tuning an instrument. He slowly turns the key, listening to the sound oscillate between error and perfect pitch. For a few seconds, the sound is dissonant, almost uncomfortable. Then, suddenly, everything falls into place. The sound vibrates cleanly, whole, harmoniously. That's how it is when your field realigns. First the noise, then the clarity. But to reach clarity, you must go through the noise without giving up the melody. And perhaps that is the real work, not to create the sound, but to listen until the silence reveals the right note. Fear tries to rush, the ego tries to control, but the wisdom of the field is patient. It waits for you to stop trying to command the rhythm and begin to feel it. Because while you insist on pushing, life resists. When you surrender to the rhythm, the field begins to dance with you. Victory doesn't come after loss, it's born from within it. Enlightenment doesn't come from light, it arises when you face the darkness without running away. And the miracle isn't the field changing. It's you becoming compatible with what it already is. There is a silent truth that only reveals itself to those who remain amidst uncertainty. A point where fear bends and the body finally relaxes. When that happens, the field opens up like a veil being lifted, and the invisible begins to show what has always been there, waiting for you to be ready to see. When the field begins to respond, it's almost never in the way you expect. It moves silently, dismantling what you thought was stable, and for a moment everything seems to fall apart. People drift apart, plans fall apart, the rhythm of daily life changes. It's as if the universe is rearranging the pieces without asking permission. But, in essence, it's simply returning everything to its natural state of coherence. What vibrates differently moves away. What vibrates the same way comes closer. It's disconcerting at first, because it seems like loss. But it's adjustment. There's a moment when you perceive it almost physically. The air changes, your body feels it. That which once consumed you no longer finds a home within you. And what once seemed invisible begins to approach, slowly, like a breeze announcing something new, yet still nameless. It's a silent and, at the same time, profoundly visceral process. The mind tries to understand, but the heart simply knows. That's when fear reappears disguised as prudence. It whispers, what if it's just a coincidence? What if none of this is real? And, at that very moment, the field observes your reaction. Because the test is never external. It's internal. It's not about what happens, it's about what vibrates within you when it happens. It's the echo of your state that dictates the outcome. Imagine yourself walking through a forest at dusk. The shadows lengthen, the sounds change, and the path seems the same, but everything around you is different. The countryside is that dusk. It doesn't frighten you, it calls your attention. It's an invitation to see with different eyes, to feel beyond what is visible. The paradox is that gain comes through loss. Clarity emerges from chaos. Presence is born when everything automatic falls apart. Life, at that point, becomes a suspended breath. You inhale the unknown and exhale what no longer serves you. And, in that brief interval, you perceive something that has always been there, hidden between sound and silence. The countryside never takes anything away from you. It only gives you back the truth. And perhaps that's the hardest part, accepting that the field doesn't fulfill desires, it reveals coherence. It doesn't fulfill wishes, it mirrors states. And when you understand that, everything changes. Because the focus shifts from what I want to what I vibrate. It's subtle. It's transformative. And suddenly, you feel that something, imperceptible, but real, begins to align inside and out, preparing the ground for what is about to emerge. It is after the silent alignment that the field begins to move visibly. Coincidences become too precise to be mere chance. People who seemed distant return with new intentions, Doors that were closed open effortlessly, and even time seems to slow down to match your internal rhythm. It's as if reality, previously indifferent, begins to listen to you. But this movement is not random. It's a response. The field always responds, even when you haven't yet realized that you were the one who asked first. The curious thing is that, at this stage, the effort loses its luster. Everything that previously required struggle now unfolds naturally. Conversations flow, delays turn into synchronicities, and what seemed like loss reveals itself to be redirection. It's living proof that the field understands vibrations, not arguments. It doesn't respond to what you say, it responds to who you are. You begin to notice that even your body participates in this process. Tensions dissipate, sleep patterns change, breathing deepens. There's a kind of silent rearrangement happening, as if the cells are remembering a forgotten pattern. And the most interesting thing is that this doesn't happen because you learned something new, but because you finally stopped interfering. The field works better when you stop trying to control the outcome. Still, it tests. It always tests. It presents small deviations, small provocations. What do you do when something goes wrong? Do you react or observe? Do you fight or trust? It is at these subtle crossroads that the frequency is defined. Because the field does not reward haste, it amplifies the state. If you vibrate in fear, it shows you more fear. If you vibrate in trust, it opens the way. It's like a liquid mirror. It reflects what you hold onto the longest. And amidst all of this, a realization begins to mature. Perhaps the secret has never been to change the world, but to change the way you listen to it. Every difficult situation carries a code. Every emotion holds a hidden instruction. The field speaks through experiences, not words. That's why many, upon perceiving this dance between energy and event, feel the urge to share what they've discovered. It's almost inevitable. When consciousness expands, it seeks an echo. And perhaps this is your moment to leave a subtle mark here, a trace of presence, a word that resonates with what you felt now. Not to be noticed, but to silently affirm, "I perceived the movement." And when that phrase resonates within you, the field understands. It adjusts, as if it had been waiting for that exact recognition to show what comes next. Over time, the field begins to reveal not only what was ready to arrive, but also what still needs to be released. And this is where the journey becomes more subtle and more demanding. Because when the frequency rises, everything that doesn't match it comes to the surface. Old situations return, forgotten emotions stir, people reappear bringing versions of yourself that no longer exist. It's the echo of the old vibration asking to be ended. Not as punishment, but as cleansing. It's a delicate, almost invisible process, but you feel it in every detail. The body responds first, the heart races for no reason, sleep patterns change, memories surface out of nowhere. The field isn't against you, it's rewriting the code. Every discomfort is a dissonant note being adjusted to the new melody. And it takes courage not to stray from this tuning. Imagine a storm forming on the horizon. The sky darkens, the wind picks up, the air is electrically charged. Everything seems chaotic, but those who observe closely perceive the hidden order within the movement. This is how the transition between frequencies works. As the old one dissolves, the new one has not yet stabilized. You are in the middle of the vortex, neither in what was, nor in what will be. It is there, in that in-between, that the transformation takes place. But there's a detail that few realize. The field never takes control away from you. It only returns the responsibility. It forces you to choose, again and again, which energy you sustain even when nothing seems to make sense. And that's the most beautiful and most brutal part of the whole process. Because it's at the exact point where you want to give up that the field measures your consistency. Progress and challenge intertwine like two threads of the same fabric. Hope arises, but is soon tested by doubt. Clarity appears, and almost instantly is shrouded in a veil of uncertainty. Not to confuse you, but to solidify your learning. With each fluctuation, the field asks, do you truly vibrate with what you claim to believe? And instead of responding with words, the only possible response is to remain. To breathe. To wait for the whirlwind to reorganize itself. Because amidst the apparent disorder, there is an invisible thread weaving new realities, a thread that can only be felt by those who do not retreat in the presence of their own chaos. And when the wind finally dies down, something changes. What was once noise now sounds like harmony. You feel you've traversed something you can't explain, but which, somehow, has realigned you. There are still unanswered questions, but there's also a strange serenity, as if the field had whispered, in a low voice, that the most important part has already happened. It is at this point that the field begins to act in an almost imperceptible way, not through major events, but through small shifts that alter everything. Conversations change tone. Someone's gaze carries a different intention. Opportunities don't just appear, they recognize themselves. And you realize that you are not attracting what you want, but what you have become. It's a silent dance between what vibrates inside and what manifests outside. Still, there are moments when the old tries to return. Fear disguises itself as logic. Doubt dresses itself in prudence. They are familiar voices, whispering, "Perhaps nothing has changed." And for a moment, you almost believe it. But something inside you no longer reacts the same way. It's subtle, but real. The field is watching. It measures your response not by words, but by the stability of your silence. Light and shadow walk side by side here. There are days when everything flows, and others when the weight returns as if to test your faith in the invisible. But the field doesn't punish, it refines. It shows you what still vibrates out of tune. And with each adjustment, a piece of noise transforms into music. Visually, it's like watching the sunrise. The night doesn't disappear all at once. It recedes in layers, slowly, until the first golden line touches the horizon. That instant between dark and light is the exact reflection of the vibrational transition. There are still shadows, but the light has already begun to emerge. You feel your body respond, as if each breath were a reminder that there is a greater rhythm guiding you. Your heart beats differently, no longer seeking control, but in dialogue with something that transcends it. It is a lucid surrender, not a blind one. A conscious, not resigned, surrender. And as you become more present, something curious happens. The field begins to reorganize itself around your state. People reappear with new versions of themselves. Paths that were previously blocked align effortlessly. Answers arrive not as words, but as synchronicities, delicate signs that require sensitivity to be understood. But the process doesn't end here. Because the more light you sustain, the more subtle the shadows become that need to be seen. They no longer frighten, they merely ask for recognition. The field never erases what was, it transforms how you perceive it. And when you finally understand this, a different kind of stillness emerges. It's not an absence of movement, but total presence. A silence that is not emptiness, but fullness. And it is within this silence that the field prepares for the next step, the one that cannot yet be revealed, but which already pulsates, invisibly, just ahead. There comes a moment when the field becomes an absolute mirror. Nothing is hidden anymore, nothing is explained anymore. Everything is simply revealed. You realize that what you called chance was, in fact, an answer. That the pauses, the delays, and even the deviations were part of an invisible design, waiting only for the moment when your frequency was ready to recognize it. It is a silent point, the kind of silence that doesn't come from the absence of sound, but from the total presence of meaning. The body knows. It feels before the mind understands. The air feels differently, the heart beats with a different purpose. There's a kind of certainty that needs no proof. And when it arrives, something inside you changes forever. The need to control gives way to trust. The rush dissolves, time expands, and you understand, finally, that the field was never against you. It was just waiting for you to stop resisting. This realization is the true reset. It's not magic, it's energetic maturity. You begin to choose each thought as one tunes an instrument, each emotion as one shapes the climate of a new reality. The things that once threw you off balance now become reminders, portals of coherence. The world remains the same, but the way you navigate it changes everything. There is immense beauty in noticing that nothing external needed to be conquered. What changed was the internal axis. The power was always there, merely dormant beneath the noise of haste, comparison, and fear. Now, what moves you is presence. What protects you is clarity. What guides you is vibration. And it is in this state that the field bends, not in submission, but in resonance. You feel gratitude expanding. It's no longer a fleeting feeling, but a state. a frequency that stabilizes in the body and radiates like light. It is in this instant that the invisible aligns with the visible, and the universe responds, not as a reward, but as an echo. Everything you have experienced up to this point reorganizes itself to serve who you have become. And perhaps that's why, when something inside you recognizes itself at this point, there's a natural, almost inevitable impulse to share, to leave a trace, a vibration that keeps moving. Many choose to like, comment, or simply leave a word sign. Not as an automatic gesture, but as a conscious act of presence. As if saying, I felt it. I remembered. And by doing this, the cycle is complete. The message born in silence returns to the field, multiplied by your vibration. The universe gathers this wave and expands it back to you, clearer, stronger, more yours. Because in the end, the field doesn't obey words, but frequencies. And now, yours finally speaks the language of the universe.